Welcome everyone to Wrasslin Raw!
Listening to Wrasslin Raw, the podcast that takes you back to when the World Wrestling Federation developed a little bit of an attitude. Thank you for joining us. You're here with Ryan Arico.
When this is all said and done, you will respect me.
Joe Giammatteo.
There's not a whole lot upstairs when it comes to Shawn Michaels.
I'm the one and only Jason Bartlett, and we're going to examine WWE history 1 year at a time. That's right, folks. It is time for our 1996 year in review. We've officially finished out 1996, and it's time to sit down and talk about some of the things we've seen, including our match of the year candidates. And I do not want to belabor this point any longer because it's been a hell of a year for matches, so let's get into it. First off, I just want to throw something out to you guys to address really quickly. Last year, 1995, we only had 2 match of the year candidates. This year we have 4. Joe, what do you think about that?
Well, the quality of entertainment in 1996 was obviously much better than 95, but I have a little bit more detail to share about that later when we talk about our highlights and lowlights of 1996.
I think it's just a clear sign of the difference between 95 and 96. You know, not everything might be perfect here in 96, but definite improvement over 95.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you go back and look at those matches, that was the Shawn Michaels and Jeff Jarrett, the night that Jeff Jarrett left, and ladder match 2, right? Those were the only 2 that actually made it.
Right.
Now we have 4 matches spanning, 4 different people. Stone Cold Steve Austin is in 2 of them. Shawn Michaels is in 2 of them. So, yeah, what a difference a year can make. Some of the booking problems are still there in 1996, but as far as the actual talent goes, things are on an uphill slide. And something else that got brought to our attention, we had some listeners chime in to ask why the Iron Man match from WrestleMania 12 between Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart didn't qualify as a match of the year candidate, why it didn't make it to our list. I mean, just speaking purely for myself, I absolutely hated the finish. I do think that was some serious bullshit. And besides that, the match didn't grab me. It didn't jump out at me. It was frankly quite boring. So I'm not saying that I'm right or wrong, just in my personal opinion, I would not have ever thought to nominate it. So take it for what it is. Ryan, what did you think?
Yeah, I have to agree. The ending was not good at all. I did not like that fucky ending with not a real clear winner. You know, that's a problem, especially when it was a 60-minute long match.
Yeah.
And that was the other problem I had with it, too, was we knew going into it how long it was going to last. And because of that, in the middle of it, I agree with what you said. It got kind of boring, I thought. It wasn't a bad match by any means, but I didn't think on the caliber of the matches we're going to cover today.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree on the hatred of the ending. I mean, what sporting event do you see where it ends in a draw and commissioner comes out and says, no, there must be a winner? Like, that just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
In my opinion, Bret Hart won the match. If anything, it's number 5 on our list, and none of us would have picked it as the best match of the year. So I think that kind of sums it up.
Yeah, we just wanted to address that real quick because it's, a lot of people out there hold that matchup as a pretty good one. And again, just our personal opinions. That's all this podcast is. So there it is. Let's talk about some things, though, that did grab us. Let's get into our match of the year candidates. What do you guys think?
All right, ready for it.
Let's do it.
All right, first up, we are going to go in chronological order through the year. First up, from the March 11th, 1996 episode of Monday Night Raw, Savio Vega versus Steve Austin ends in a double count out in 6 minutes and 20 seconds. From the first tie-up and elbow, the standout trait of this match was energy. Everything both competitors were doing was full investment. Whether it was the offense, whether it was defensive reversals, the selling, the bumping, it didn't feel like anything was being held back with these two. It almost felt like they were trying to make themselves off of this match and what would become a multi-match feud. One of the other things that sets this match apart from the contenders this year is that this is the only match from Monday Night Raw. The rest are from pay-per-views. While that little fact, makes for an above average and amazing match, it also kind of handicaps this match a little bit, because with this we have commercial breaks, we have Vince's bullshit commentary that goes on whenever he's trying to fill time or fill the airspace with his bullshit that he tends to not do with pay-per-views. So that's something that kind of figures into things for me, but at the same time, the ring psychology here was top-notch. Savio Vega started his comeback, and both competitors were just really working the desperation and just this drive to compete and win. But for me, one of the best parts of this match was the aftermath. The double count-out ending was a decent touch to keep from being a winner and, perpetuating this feud that, as I said, started with this match. The way that these two tore into each other after the bell rang is what bumps it up for me. This felt real. This whole match, but the ending especially. It's like you could feel the realness coming through the screen. That these two, it's like they were not interested in victory at all. They just wanted to beat the shit out of each other. And you saw it and you felt it. As a takeaway, there's a lot of different things that we can list as takeaways from a lot of different kinds of matches, but this feeling real, first of all, and that this was a prime example of how the basics can create an exciting, engaging match that has no need at all to rely on crazy moves or foreign objects. There were maybe 2 instances of Stone Cold, the heel, attempting to cheat, and even they were relatively tame compared to what we might see on TV today. In this match, less is more, and it just goes to show where the fundamentals can take you. Joe, please, what do you have on our first candidate for Match of the Year?
Well, first I want to say that these first 2 matches we're going to discuss, they happened in March and April, and it feels, when we go back to these, it feels so long ago that we've seen it, and I think that's a testament of how well Stone Cold Steve Austin has done with his Stone Cold character up to this point, because this was his first match as Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Yeah. Still with the $1 Million Man out there.
Yeah. Still had Ted DiBiase. Wasn't in the full Stone Cold gear yet, but this was his first match with that name. So that's worth noting. Another thing worth noting is Earl Hebner was not the referee in this match. So that automatically makes it great, right?
Right.
Well, better.
But one thing we learned through watching Stone Cold Steve Austin and Savio Vega have matches together is it's always going to be a knockdown, drag out. It's always going to look like a real fight. And that's what this was. I mean, if I have any complaints about this match, it's that I wish it went longer. It was such a good match. The crowd was really into it, but they, like you said, Bartlett, they're on Raw, so they have commercials and they have to talk about other storylines and stuff like that during this match. So it didn't go quite as long as I wish it would have, but this is just a great match between 2 guys that just work so well together.
Like you're saying with the time, that's probably the one thing is I wish it was longer. And it's probably our shortest of the 4 matches we're going over. But thinking back, watching this, it made me remember just how excited we were after watching this match, because this is pretty early on in 96. So we were getting murdered with 95 for a whole year. And to see Stone Cold finally cut his hair, get rid of that ridiculous blonde mop that he had, and come out with a bald head, finally turn over to Stone Cold and start wrestling like Stone Cold. And how lucky we were that he met in the ring with Savio Vega for this first Stone Cold match, because they had a fucking slobber knocker in there. At first it started out as more of a technical match, but when they came back from the first commercial break, at that point it turned into a street brawl.
Yeah.
And most of the time, a double count out would be something that you're like, all right, that's not a great ending. But in this case, I don't know if it made it better, but it didn't hurt it at all, at the very least, because after that, they just went at each other as if nothing stopped, like as if no bell rung. They just beat the shit out of each other for a few more minutes, and the crowd loved it, and I know I loved it, even rewatching it. But thinking back to how excited we were to finally start getting some good matches like this back in March was, I think, helps put this match up a little higher just because of what we were dealing with for so long. So fantastic job by both guys.
Yeah, I distinctly remember this match being a breath of fresh air whenever we first saw it. So, that's the first candidate. Let's move on to candidate number 2. From April 28th, 1996, the pay-per-view In Your House 7, Good Friends, Better Enemies. This was Shawn Michaels with Jose Lothario defeating Diesel in a no-holds-barred match in 17 minutes and 53 seconds to retain the WWF Championship. I distinctly remember thinking the first time that we watched this that this was the best Diesel match I had ever seen, and that opinion remained throughout my rewatch here. The no-holds-barred stipulation added to this. Like, for example, Shawn Michaels ripping the boot off of Hugo Savinovich's foot to beat Diesel with it right off the bat. That was good. And I've talked up Diesel here. Shawn Michaels is no slouch in this match either. There have been a lot of times over the course of this podcast where Shawn Michaels has annoyed the living hell out of me, mostly in interviews, but sometimes in the ring too. But in this match, Shawn Michaels was throwing himself into things not just physically, but psychologically as well. You could tell that he was fully invested in giving his friend a good match. Friendship. Obviously, I popped my ass off for Diesel strangling Earl Hebner, so, that bumps this up quite a bit for me. But that was just the beginning of the next level of insanity. Vince McMahon gives it a great line. It's supposed to be no holds barred, not this. And that is at about the time where Diesel hangs Shawn Michaels with a belt that he pulled off of Earl Hebner. By God, something that we had never seen before. Huge amount of shock value in that. Still, even rewatching it for our recording here, it still shocks me to see that they did that and how well they worked it, because that's some dangerous shit, you know? The way that Diesel worked the psychology of a hunter stalking prey throughout this entire match was phenomenal. Right up through to the very end, there was always this, we joke around about Jason or Michael Myers and, the slow walk to kill you. That's kind of how Diesel was in this. He was just methodically coming back and back and back for more to try to take a piece of Shawn. And one of the other great things here, the spot where Diesel attempts to hit Shawn with the chair, Shawn ducks it, and the chair bounces off the ropes to come back and hit Diesel. It staggers Diesel and sits him down. Just extremely creative. It's a simple thing, but we hadn't seen that before. And to have it come in a match, well, not just a match of the year candidate, but like a main event match of a pay-per-view, that was pretty cool. The piece de resistance was Diesel jackknife powerbombing Shawn through the commentary table, though, that Jerry Lawler and Vince was just barely able to get out from behind in time. It was still covered in monitors and cords, and it was an amazing visual. And that was even followed up by another surprise, the fire extinguisher blast from Shawn to blind Diesel. That came out of nowhere. That was great. And in case anyone was wondering, the crowd was fully invested in this. That's how good of a job these guys were doing in this match. The arena was on their feet. In every wide camera angle you could see, everybody was standing. Shawn reversing out of the jackknife, that was great. Riding Diesel down to the mat while pummeling him with rabbit punches, just another fantastic visual. And of course, Diesel pulling the fake leg off of Maurice Vachon. Fucking amazing. One of the best finishes that I've ever seen in my entire life involving a fake leg. In our first match, we had a stunning example of what the fundamentals can do for match quality. In this match, we have an example of what thinking outside the box can do to take both wrestlers and match stipulations to the next level. Ryan, please, what did you think of this match?
I would totally agree that this is Diesel's best match that he has in the WWF. And it's something, going into this match, we saw a lot of Diesel in 95.
Yeah.
Again, this is another early 96 match. And when Diesel had the belt, he went up against a lot of people, and a lot of those matches did not look good. Even the Bret Hart matches were just okay. They weren't bad, but they were just okay. This one, however, I don't know if it's because they're such good friends and they were able to work it out for so long, but they both really brought it. And, the montage, even at the beginning, I thought did a good job of setting up their long history that they had and then reminding us of Bob Backlund getting murdered in 3 seconds at the In Your House for the title. I was glad to see that. One thing I didn't really remember from the first time watching through was in Diesel's promo, he makes a dig at Vince McMahon and calls him one of Shawn Michaels' clicksters. And then later on, when he's making his entrance, he tosses his vest at him. I think he was giving him a bit of a striptease. So I didn't remember that from the first time we watched it, but that was a good touch by Diesel. The match itself, though, this is a great example of using the gimmick match to its full extent. This didn't just feel like a normal match. When you saw Shawn Michaels hanging over the ropes by that belt, that was just a scene that up until this point, at least, if you watched ECW, you might have been seeing stuff like this, but not in the WWF. That was something new. And I thought Diesel and Shawn Michaels both pulled that off great. And everywhere they were using weapons. The table spot was another great slam. He takes Shawn Michaels and jackknifes him right through the table. And there's more of Vince McMahon professing his love for Shawn Michaels, telling him to, just let it be over.
Poor Vince.
2 minutes later, Shawn is in there tuning up for the sweet chin music, and Vince is just screaming, "Give it to him, give it to him, give it to him." Vince is just relentless with his love for Shawn Michaels, but nothing could beat this end. Using Mad Dog for Shawn's prosthetic leg to bring this match to an end does really bring it up a notch. But the biggest thing that I take away from it is Diesel's going to leave fairly soon after this match, and this will definitely be his best match in the WWF. There's no two ways about it. This is it.
Yeah, I agree with that statement. This is definitely Diesel's best match. And this is kind of his swan song, like you said. This is kind of, the curtain call is obviously the goodbye, but this is really the last big match that he has. And he didn't half-ass any of it. Bartlett, like you said, he's kind of using that hunter stalking its prey type of thing. And that's Kevin Nash understanding pace and knowing that psychology. Like, I'm going to slowly attack my opponent because I'm a bigger guy. I can't move like Shawn Michaels, so I'm going to, use that hunter stalking a prey mentality, and it works great here. I gave this 5 stars when we reviewed this the first time, and I'm gushing again when I watch it a second time. This match is just the definition of sports entertainment. You could almost consider this match a spot fest because they put a guy through an announce table. They were using chairs. Shawn Michaels was hanging by a belt from the ropes. They used a fire extinguisher. They used a prosthetic leg. This just had so many spots, but it was executed just so smoothly and perfectly that, even the spot with the leg it's like almost a borderline comedy spot, but it wasn't really funny. It was like...
Especially when they showed Vachon rolling around on the ground, pleading for his leg back.
Yeah, and I got to give some credit to commentary there, too, because Jerry Lawler, who's always, goofing around, was very serious when that happened. He's just like, oh, my God. He was like, oh, my God, Kevin Kelly. Oh, my God, I can't believe he's doing that. He kind of changed his tone to sell it even more, which was great. But yeah, this match is just, I can't think of anything negative to say about this match. It was kind of weird seeing Shawn as a freshly crowned WWF champion, too, because this is right after WrestleMania. So that was kind of weird to see now that we're in December. But yeah, this match was amazing.
Yeah. I mean, I know I loved it before whenever we first saw it in our regular viewing schedule and nominated it for Match of the Year. And it held up throughout the rest of the year for me. This was great to go back and watch again. All right, let's move on to our next contender here. From the September 22nd, 1996 pay-per-view, In Your House 10 Mind Games. This was Shawn Michaels with Jose Lothario defeating Mankind with Paul Bearer by disqualification in 26 minutes and 25 seconds to retain the WWF Championship. Our second match from Shawn Michaels here, it was highlighted by his nervousness at taking on the deranged Mankind, something that Shawn was able to incorporate into his wrestling at the start of this match, and it was something that we hadn't seen. It was a new level of Shawn Michaels. It was a new level of, I don't know if you really want to use the phrase character development or not, but it was quite possibly the most professionally devoted, I guess we could maybe say, of Shawn Michaels. You know, he wasn't being the childish, man-child throwing a fit person. He was showing some real vulnerability here, and it was kind of like a extra spice in the cake there. There was also the perceived need to sacrifice further, work harder, and we see that in how much Shawn lays in his punches. And that was before Shawn got frustrated, and before Mick Foley, aka Mankind, goaded him into it a little bit. Speaking of, Mankind also holds a lot of responsibility for the quality of this match, directing it not just in terms of the moves in the ring, but directing Shawn to get more engaged. And again, that's not to say that Shawn wasn't engaged before, but Mankind deliberately fucked with Shawn and drew out more from Shawn than anybody else had at this point in our viewing. And it really stands out in this, where the No Holds Barred match was creative in its pacing and where it gave us its twists and turns. This match is creative in the way that it truly explored pain. Mankind brought the pain to the match and helped Shawn get to the point of wanting to work it. A great example of this theme was working off of Mankind's leg. There was a vicious suplex that ended with the back of Mankind's left leg being cracked across the corner of the ring stairs, and the way that was used in the remainder of the match was fucking amazing. Where in the last match, we had Diesel stealing Maurice Vachon's fake leg. In this match, we have Mankind stabbing himself in the knee with a pen to regain the feeling in it. That knee, it never left. There was no convenient point where it was time to forget it. We're gonna have a rally or a victory, so we need to forget to sell the leg. Mankind maintained selling the leg even in the times where it would be really hard or inopportune to do so. What a fucking professional. And when I thought it couldn't get any crazier, Mankind got tied up in the ropes in what was another surprising moment. The shocking visual of that, you've got the taut, tense ring ropes wrapped around his head and that fucking mask poking up in between them and making the noise, and man, just good shit, pal. So was Mankind punching the steel chair with the claw hand. Michaels continuing to work that hand to deny the use of it. Great shit. That's excellent storytelling. Jim Ross screaming, "Mankind is getting physically dissected here," was a beautiful piece of commentary to accurately describe what Shawn was doing to Mankind at that point in the match. Jim Ross was really able to lay into some of his commentary here. McMahon seemed like he stepped back and let Jim go for it for the most part. Not as much as he would in our final match, but I just spent a good amount of time being absorbed in this match, like all good matches can do to you, We got to the German suplex through the table, followed by the sweet chin music through the chair. I had forgotten about those spots, and it was great to see them again because I felt just as entertained, just as energized, and just as excited about them as I did whenever I first watched this. But I had also forgotten about the schmoz at the end and the details of the disqualification for a match that hadn't really adhered to the rules anyway. If anything, I would maybe say that the only bad thing about this match was that it was a little too long. It felt like if it had maybe been 5 minutes shorter, it would have been absolutely perfect. That's being a nitpicking dickbag. Otherwise, this was just a new way to look at Shawn Michaels. This was proof of main event quality for Mankind, as if we didn't have enough already at this point. It's proof that he's a decent championship contender. And just was an absolute joy to watch. Joe, what did you think of this?
Well, another match that I gave 5 stars when we originally covered it. In fact, I watched this match twice when we originally covered it. That's how much I love this match. But, like you said, the finish is a real shame. It's almost like this match was used as a vehicle to continue that Mankind Undertaker feud and then try to also pump life back into a Shawn Michaels and Vader feud that wasn't working at this time. So the finish really sucks. I mean, I don't mind the fact that there was interference, but just the way that it was done, I thought could have been better. They could have just done the Undertaker Mankind stuff, and I would have been happy with that. But they had to throw Vader in there. And I also forgot, did you notice how slowly Shawn had to go for the cover because he was waiting for Vader to come out?
Yeah.
And it was very noticeable, when you watch it 2-3 times, maybe not the first time, but yeah, it's really a shame because I could go on and on about how much I love this match. And, I'm not going to repeat everything you said, but I mean, I can just go on and on about the things I loved about it. So it's really disappointing that they decided to end it like that.
Yeah, I agree that Vader coming out is bad and it sucks, but I love this match so much. And that ending, as bad as it is, if I could look at it from trying to put a rosy picture on it, Shawn landed the sweet chin music, running up a chair, through another chair off the top rope. So the match was won. He was going to pin Mankind. So the fact Vader comes in, he doesn't really interrupt. It causes a disqualification, and I hate that Vader is out there ruining another person's match. But to me, it doesn't take it away quite as much, only because this match is so great. Just the punching each other. You could definitely tell, Joe, I think you were the one telling us before that Mick Foley told Shawn Michaels, hey, this mask kind of dulls the blows, so, lay him in there. And you could see that he was definitely doing that because the hits that Mankind took to his face really looked like he was being punched. The slam onto the steps, I don't know if that was planned. I know they wanted to slam, give him a suplex, but I don't know if they meant to slam his leg into there. But if not, they did a great job of working it into the rest of the match. I'm guessing it was planned, but that's how good it was done. I don't know because it hit so hard. It fucking looked real. And when Mankind slams Michaels through the Spanish announcer's table off the top rope, I think that's probably the most violent table spot that we have seen in all of our coverings so far. I don't think there's been anything like that so far. The Vader stuff at the end really does leave a bad taste in your mouth, but then Undertaker waiting in the casket, popping his head up, to me, that saves it because I don't know when the fuck he got in there. We saw the inside of this casket at least twice during this match, so I don't know when the hell he snuck in there, but that was a great surprise, even the second time through. So Vader, you motherfucker, but I can't take away from what these two did in the ring. It was just absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. All right, let's move it to our final contender here. The most recent from the November 17th, 1996 pay-per-view Survivor Series. Bret Hart defeats Stone Cold Steve Austin by pinfall in 28 minutes and 36 seconds. Here we come back again to look at how the fundamentals mixed with technical wrestling and some surprises can come together to forge an amazing match. And let's also not forget that this was Bret Hart's return, not just to the WWF, but to Madison Square Garden. The crowd fucking popped for Bret. It's hard to explain just how ready for this match the crowd felt. It's like the anticipation was palpable there. Which is another thing that this match had going for it. It was a classic long-term build-up going into it. Keep in mind that we had been getting teasers for weeks prior. And I think it's fair to say that this was a match that everyone, from the wrestlers in the ring, to the crowd in the arena, to the viewers at home, everyone wanted this. They had made us want this in what was probably the best build-up for any match that we've seen. I don't know. It certainly in 1996 and 1995. I don't know about the entire run of the podcast here, but the build-up to this match and the way that it delivered on that build-up are what's one of the many reasons that it got nominated here. Bret Hart backing Steve Austin into the corners to start this off. So simple, but so effective. Such a great way to begin the story. It worked and it kept going. The way that this match built from the start was like a gas burner flame, slowly turning up higher and higher, building in intensity. One of the things that I really love about Bret Hart is the subtle way that he sells. He doesn't over-exaggerate the blows dealt to him. Just to give a recent example there, we have Billy Gunn, who got a stun gun onto the top ropes, and, I joke that he broke his own neck selling the stun gun off the ropes because of how violently he jerked his head around during the sell. That's maybe an extreme example, but what made me make this note is Bret is sitting on the mat. Austin kicks him from behind. And, if you've got somebody sitting there in front of you and you kick them, they're not going to, in an exaggerated manner, go flying 3 feet across the floor. They're just going to dunk, register it. Their head jerks forward a little bit and they're going to kind of just topple over, which is exactly what Bret does here. His selling makes it look like he's really getting hit with these blows. On the other hand, you have Stone Cold Steve Austin, and the way he works through this match can only be called viciously relentless. Austin has an air of viciousness in everything he does. It sweats out of his pores, for Christ's sakes. And I have no idea how, I suppose it's because of how much of a professional he is. I have no idea how you can make walking towards somebody look vicious, but he does it. How you can make a sleeper look vicious, but he does it. There were also a ton of little details in this that just highlight that ongoing professionalism in these two. Things like Austin selling the atomic drop, but then also taking 2 steps to ring center to make sure he was in position for Bret without easing up on selling the atomic drop. If I hadn't have rewound this to rewatch it, I probably wouldn't have noticed it. But without even batting an eye, without easing up on how he's selling that injury, he makes sure to get himself into position for Bret so that Bret can execute a safe move on him. Austin raking Bret's face to get out of the sidewalk slam. It worked perfectly because Austin was just dropped out of it. It wasn't graceful. It wasn't obviously executed as, a move. It was unceremonious. It was sloppy, and that made it look real. And speaking of sloppy making it real, Hart and Austin going into, not through, the Spanish announce table, there was desperation in that. There was frenzy in that. It felt real. So in terms of refereeing here also, this didn't have Earl Hebner, thank God. It had Tim White, and it just felt like there was like a different level of officiating authority here with referee Tim White. There were times where White would catch Austin cheating, and White would give it to Austin, yelling at him and poking at him whenever Austin was caught cheating, and Tim White wasn't getting intimidated from it, and Stone Cold respected the authority of the referee there. Bret and Austin traded punches in a sequence that looked like the visual definition of a slobber knocker. It's hard to explain how much these visual scenes hit me watching this match because it's the kind of thing that just happens organically and sucks you in. And this match also had something that the others didn't, in that the 2-count pins were exciting. Any of the false finishes in the other matches were just kind of ho-hum. I'm not trying to say they were boring, but they're not exciting either. The final few minutes where Austin was rapid fire pinning Bret out of frustration, God, that was just, it was great. I can't explain it any better than that. Just the frustration, again, pouring through the screen and coming at us. I also can't ignore the use of the Texas Cloverleaf submission by Austin, an underrated move, extremely pleasing to see, and that's just icing on the cake for me personally. But, what I think is probably one of the most outstanding things about this match, the finish. Bret Hart rolling over Steve Austin while Austin was still holding the $1 Million Dream on him. That was unexpected. It was well executed, and the perfect example of what creativity mixed with the fundamentals can bring when used with the right timing. Ryan, please, what did you think about our final contender for Match of the Year?
I mean, how long was this match in the making? It was months, right? The build up.
Yeah.
2-3 months that they teased us with Stone Cold calling out Bret Hart. And for a long time, we got no response. It was just Stone Cold bitching about Bret Hart and we got nothing. And then finally we got to see Bret Hart and he teased that he might be coming back. The build up for this match, I think you're right in saying unprecedented in what we've covered. I don't think anything was done this well and this long. When Bret gets in the ring, he hasn't wrestled for 6-7 months at this time, but there seemed to be no ring rust, in my opinion. He was ready to go from the very beginning. And I thought JR had a great quote when he says, you're looking at both Stone Cold and Bret Hart in their prime. And he couldn't be more right, especially the untimely neck injury of Stone Cold that's going to happen in a year from now. So that's going to change how he wrestles forever. So we are truly seeing these two guys at their prime. And it was a great thing to watch. Unlike some of the other matches that we went over, this was a little bit more conventional of a match, but, they did get a little bit unorthodox when they got the Spanish announcer table involved, a little bit with the crowd barrier, but for the most part, this was just great wrestling between two guys. And the way that they executed this match was it looked so smooth and precise. Everything was just executed perfectly. JR, he was on fire in this match. Another thing he said, in this very spot, you saw Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier get it on. You're seeing this. What a great way to put over what's happening here. And obviously it's not on the level of Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier, but fantastic job by JR as well. The ending, the whole build up to the ending was really something to watch. Frustration building in Stone Cold and him having to even try and dig and go back to his old $1 Million Dream submission. And that's what cost him the match. Bret Hart's able to reverse that. Bell to bell, a clinic on storytelling and wrestling by both of these guys.
Yeah, clinic is a good word. If a casual wrestling fan, if we're living in December 1996 and a casual wrestling fan asks me, hey, Joe, what's a good technical wrestling match that I should watch? You're going to point to this one. Yeah, this match really kind of gave me the same feel as some of Bret Hart's other great technical matches that he had, like the one against his brother Owen, ironically, in the same building. The matches he had against Mr. Perfect, Roddy Piper, those types of matches. It was just a great technical wrestling match. And these guys were kind of at an advantage being in Madison Square Garden. It had that real sport feel to it. Even before the match really started, they're kind of, circling around the ring and they haven't tied up yet. It just had such a real sport feel to it. And of course, Ryan, like you mentioned, JR is making it feel that way too. So yeah, this was a great technical match. Only negative things I have about this one is they threw that stipulation in there that the winner gets a title shot. I wish they would have done that a little bit earlier, but again, that's just nitpicking. And then the match went to another level when they took it outside. I loved it, but they were out there for a long time and nobody got counted out. So that was a little bit of a slip, but again, it's 5 stars. That's just nitpicking dickbag stuff. This match was just awesome.
Yeah. 100% agreed. And so that is going to take us to the voting. This is something that we do not discuss ahead of time. We have no idea what our individual votes are. I'm going to kick it off first. I have two picked because, as we've said earlier, there are more contenders here this year, and there's a higher chance of the three of us disagreeing. So I went with my number one pick, and if that's not what we all agree on, then I also have a second pick that I would be willing to put up there too, because it was very, very close in quality.
Okay, I guess I could say I do as well then.
So I ended up going with Austin and Bret as mine because, in my opinion, there are no real flaws with any of it. The build-up was perfect. The commentary was perfect. The wrestling was perfect. There's nothing about that in the totality of it that went wrong. There were barely, I can't even think of a botch that happened in the ring. Even maybe, a mistimed move or something, Every single thing about how that match was executed was just perfect. So that's why I decided to go with that as my my nominee. Do you guys want to throw out your first nominees? Joe, what do you say?
Let me just say I had a feeling you were going to pick that one.
Yeah, I've probably been pretty obvious about it.
Well, not because you were obvious. Let me just say that was the only match out of these. Well, we didn't give a star rating to Savio Vega versus Stone Cold Steve Austin, but that was the only match out of these 3 pay-per-views that you gave a 5-star when we originally talked about it. So Ryan is kind of a wild card for me. I have a feeling I know where he's leaning, but we'll see. So for me, my number one choice, I feel like I kind of showed my cards a little bit. I had nothing negative to say about this match. It was Shawn Michaels versus Diesel at Good Friends, Better Enemies. I just think there was absolutely nothing negative to say about this match, and it was just, like I said, the definition of sports entertainment.
So I think we're going to have to fall back on our second choices here, because my match of the year, and it's a little bit of bias because of me being a huge fan, but I went with Shawn Michaels and Mick Foley. And, because this was such a huge match for both of them, it proved to the ECW hardcore fans that Shawn Michaels maybe had a little more guts than people gave him credit for. He was going toe-to-toe with a hardcore icon like Mick Foley. And for Mick Foley, it showed a lot of people that, hey, he could actually do some technical stuff too. And not only that, he could put your number one guy in the company over to a great extent on pay-per-view. I think it was just such a huge match for both guys that for me, I was able to look past the Vader shit at the end.
So I think you're right in this, that we might have to start looking at number twos, because my number two was Shawn and Diesel, Good Friends, Better Enemies.
As is mine.
Okay, well, that's fantastic that we all settled there, because really, Joe, you put it best. There is not much you can take away from that match, and the very definition of sports entertainment. You hit it right on the head with that.
It was actually a struggle for me to not pick the Diesel one. It was just the couple things that really put it over for me with the Mick Foley-Shawn, but the Diesel-Shawn match, a fantastic choice as well.
Yeah, whenever I was watching all of these matches, it had been a while since we watched those matches because they were so early in the year, and I already kind of had it in my head that, obviously nobody's going to be any better than Austin and Bret, and then I watched that one again, and I was like, oh, shit, I'm going to have to do some serious thinking about this.
Well, it's only fitting that this podcast would choose the match where Earl Hebner was choked out with tape.
So that his belt could be taken from him. He's such a wiener. He got bullied in the ring.
And Howard Finkel got thrown off to the side, yeah.
That bastard Diesel picking on the Think. All right. Well, that's awesome. I'm really glad that we were able to so quickly come to a conclusion here. And that's it. 1996 Match of the Year. Good Friends, Better Enemies, Shawn Michaels versus Diesel in the No Holds Barred match. God damn, who'd have thought that a Diesel match would get Match of the Year from us? Let's move it along. We've got a couple more segments to hit real quick to round out the year, or I shouldn't say real quick, but next up, I want to give it to the president of the Carpenters Union, Mr. Ryan Arrico. I do believe that he has a Jobber of the Year for us. I'm on the edge of my seat for this.
Thank you, Jason. I do have a Jobber of the Year. You know, I went back and I watched some of the matches that weren't people like Duke the Dumpster or Aldo, you know, people like Tajiri and Freddie Joe Floyd, real life jobbers, you know. And this pick in the end, though, was the only true choice for 96. This jobber impressed me every time I saw him in the ring, and he was a true jobber, not a failed superstar dumb gimmick, but a honest-to-goodness enhancement talent guy. In the end, I could only go with Alex the Pug Porto.
Excellent.
Wow.
Excellent.
I think he earned the job this year, and I congratulate him. If anyone out there wants the full rundown of Alex the Pug Porto, you get a twofer for this one. It is March 11th, 1996. So while you're at it, watch Savio Vega versus Stone Cold and listen to me talk about Alex the Pug Porto.
Nice.
You can't hear it because of very technical sound canceling software that's installed on my computer here, but there's an enormous crowd of people behind me cheering the announcement, all wearing Team Pug shirts.
I knew you would like that. I knew you would like it, but he was the clear standout.
I just got hit by a cork that got popped out of a champagne bottle.
The entire room is covered in plastic like the baseball championships.
Thank you, Ryan, for that. Joseph, what kind of Observer Awards do you have from 1996 for us?
Well, I will try to run through these quickly. We have quite a few that I thought were pretty interesting. So I'll start with Wrestler of the Year. Shawn Michaels came in at number 2, Wrestler of the Year. Number 1 was a wrestler from a Japanese promotion, Kenta Kobashi. This marks the 3rd year in a row that this award has gone to a wrestler from a Japanese promotion. Best Babyface. Shawn Michaels was voted as number 1. And
Jeez.
Bret Hart was voted as number 2.
Oh.
So, pretty interesting. The best heel. Number 1, Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
Feud of the year, Undertaker versus Mankind was voted as number 2 behind WCW versus NWO. Tag team of the year, we will just skip that. Best on interviews. Number 1, Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Not Bart Gunn.
Not Bart Gunn. Number 2, though, I wanted to point out was Shane Douglas. So
no shit.
Nice rebound for him, coming from his days of being a dean. The most charismatic. I'm sure you guys know who won that one. 2nd year in a row, Shawn Michaels, number 1. I wanted to point out the Bruiser Brody Memorial Award, which is the award that goes to the best brawler. Number 1, it went to Mankind.
Wow.
And this is Mick Foley's 6th year in a row winning that award.
Wow.
Obviously, in years past was as Cactus Jack.
Yeah.
So props to Mick for that one. Most overrated wrestler. Number 1 was Hulk Hogan. Number 2 was Psycho Sid.
Aw, poor Sid.
This is probably the most shocking one that I read. I could not believe my eyes when I saw this. Most underrated wrestler. Number 1 last year, if you remember, was Skip of the Body Donnas, Chris Candido, which is not too shocking.
Yeah.
Can you guys guess who number 1 most underrated wrestler was this year? He is from the WWF.
TL Hopper.
No, my God, no.
Aldo.
No. Good guess. Leif Cassidy.
Ooh.
Ah.
Wow.
Which is not so shocking, I guess, we know what he's going to do later, but, Leif Cassidy, what the fuck? What have we seen from him that's underrated?
The very last match we saw of him, we were seeing some glimmers of what we know of Al Snow.
Yeah.
That's what I
Right.
remember, but...
The match of the year, the highest rated WWF match by the readers was the Iron Man match, and that came in at number 5, so nothing really worth noting there. Rookie of the year, Rocky Maivia came in at number 3. Manager of the year, once again, Jim Cornette at number 1, Sonny at number 2. Jim Cornette has won this award every single year since 1985, with the exception of 1991, which went to the beautiful, sensational Sherry. But every other year, Jim Cornette. Best play-by-play announcer, Jim Ross, came in at number 2. Can you guess who was number 1?
Kevin, oh my God, Kelly.
No. Third year in a row at number 1, Joey Styles.
Oh,
nice.
Worst announcer, Vince only came in at number 4 on that list. So, way to go, Vince.
1, 2. No, he didn't.
Best color commentator, Jerry Lawler, number 1, second year in a row. And I will finish with the most disgusting promotional tactic went to the WWF's use of fake Razor and fake Diesel, number 1.
wow.
Yeah. Well earned.
Indeed.
Well, some nice little tidbits there. Thank you, Joseph. Gentlemen, we have 2 more things to go over here. First of all, let's talk about our highlights and lowlights of the year. I'll go first here. My highlight of 1996 was just that so many big names joined the WWF in 96. So many, in fact, that it would take forever to name them all here. You know, we try to ignore the future when we're watching these episodes, but you can't help but get excited to see the debuts of some of these guys. You know, we didn't just grow up watching them, but now we're getting into the era where these are guys that the 3 of us watched together. You know, these aren't people that we remember from seeing, you know, sitting with our parents on Monday nights or Saturday mornings on Superstars. This is the era where these are stars from where we used to sit together to watch this. These are the stars that planted the seed that grew to where we are today. So that was absolutely my highlight. This is the start of very, very, very good memories for me. So the low light, the unwillingness to pretend like some things never happened. You know, they should give up on fake Razor and fake Diesel.
Long ago.
They should drop the cartoony gimmicks that are getting mixed in with some of the more serious stories. They should acknowledge when something has failed and move past it. You know, pretending like things never happened, it's very, very easy for the WWF to do. They do it constantly, to the point where we laugh at them because of it. But for some reason, the shittiest parts of 1996 are still around going into 1997. So that was probably the biggest thing that jumped out to me about the transition into the new year. Joe, what did you have?
Well, I'll start with highlights. If we're ignoring the future completely, I agree with you. You know, we saw some big names come in, The Rock, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Mankind. But I guess with ignoring the future, I think if I had to pick one highlight, it's the Mankind and Undertaker feud in 1996. I think that was the highlight of 1996 for me. Lowlights, I have to say, 1996 WWF was better than 1995. But 1996 WWF still kind of sucked. I didn't think that the Shawn Michaels first run as champion was very good. I don't necessarily think it was all his fault. I mean, we have to remember that Kevin Nash and Scott Hall left. So did Sean Waltman. So they lost some really big names that year. Even though some big names came in, they're not quite big names yet, I guess. And then there were some things this year that admittedly I was kind of looking forward to seeing, not because I thought they were going to be good, but just wanted to kind of relive it and see why it was so bad. Vader was terrible. Wildman Mark Marrow is awful, and he's being pushed to the moon in the mid-card rankings. The Warrior, my God, do we remember the fucking return of the Ultimate Warrior? And just one of the worst creative ideas of all time, the fake Razor, fake Diesel gimmick, just being an ongoing thing was just disgusting.
Me and you, Joe, are going to parallel pretty close on low light and exactly on highlight. My highlight was the Undertaker-Mankind feud, as well as Paul Bear's turn on the Undertaker. That was something that, back when I was young, shocked me and took me by surprise, and I thought really helped 96 become a memorable year in wrestling. My low light is just one of the points you went over, and it's Vader. You know, I was excited for him to come in. I knew going into it that it wasn't known to be a great run for him, but I had great memories of Vader from a childhood, and really outside of his attack on Gorilla Monsoon when he first showed up, which was great. Everything since that has been shit. He seems to be just phoning it in. And Joe, like you've pointed out many times, he just runs away now. So he's not even a monster. So he was my biggest disappointment of 96.
Yeah, that's a really good one, because I was right there with you with Vader at the end of 95 whenever he kind of was, getting ready to debut. I remembered him as being a larger than life monster from whenever I was a kid, and I was like, oh yeah, I can't wait to see Vader again. But now in hindsight, it just wasn't that good. Hasn't been that good and continues to not be that good, unfortunately. We're going to wrap things up with our final little talk here, what we're looking forward to in 1997. I've got a couple things that I'm really, really excited for. Further development of those big names that I mentioned earlier, but two specifically, especially coming off of 1996. I'm really looking forward to seeing the ongoing evolution of Hunter Hearst Helmsley. I surprise myself in saying that, because there are a lot of different things that I can think of in hindsight that I try to, I can remember in 97 that I might be looking forward to. But I never thought that the transition from the cartoon to the game would be so interesting and engaging. It's been just fascinating to me watching Hunter Hearst Helmsley slowly, gradually change over time. And the second thing that I am really looking forward to is more from the Nation of Domination. This is one of those instances where, back then it was never really a big interest to me, but now, watching the past, I'm really excited to see where that goes, to pick up the little details that I missed whenever I was younger, and to see just how revolutionary or controversial, or however you want to put it, they got with it. I'm really, really stoked about the Nation of Domination. Ryan, what did you have for looking forward to in 1997?
So I have two main things that I'm looking forward to in 97. And the first thing is just Bret Hart. I can't wait for him to make his heel turn, the classic double turn with him in Austin at WrestleMania. And I've said it many times since the beginning of this podcast, heel Bret Hart is my favorite. So I'm really looking forward to seeing him get there. Second, that's gotta be Kane. I'm looking forward to the Undertaker, Kane, Paul Bearer storyline. I know it was great back growing up, and I'm sure I'm gonna love it again.
Yeah, it's funny to think about. Was it really that great? Because we're gonna find out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So 1997 is probably my favorite year in wrestling. I think there were some very high highs and there were some really low lows in 97. I'm looking forward to reliving some of those highs, like the development of 3 Hall of Fame level stables like Hart Foundation, D-Generation X, and Nation of Domination. I'm looking forward to some incredibly big names that are going to make a lasting impact, such as Chyna, Ken Shamrock, and Kane, just to name a few. I'm not looking forward to reliving some of the lowest lows of 97. Shawn losing his smile. The Montreal Screwjob. I mean, what was once a fascinating thing has been beat to death now up to this point. And whether you are a Bret guy or a Shawn guy, I think every single person directly involved in that was a complete asshole, is what it comes down to. I mean, another low is the Brian Pillman death. I think that's the first active roster guy that's going to pass away. So that's a very low low there. Stone Cold is going to break his neck. But some great creative is going to help make that be kind of a good thing. Breaking your neck is never a good thing, but probably some of the best creative they've ever come up with is going to happen as a result of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I am looking forward to that as well. All right, guys. Anything to add as we kick 1996 the hell out the door?
No, I think we covered it.
Yeah, kick it out, kick the wild man with it.
No. We have an ongoing commitment. We have a guaranteed commitment to the wild man for quite a while now, sorry to say. And that's it folks, we are done with 1996. I want to thank you again for joining us. If you like what we're doing here and want to connect with us, you can email us at WRASSLINRAW. Just add @gmail.com to the end of that to submit questions or comments. Check us out on social media and on every podcast subscription platform. While you're there, don't forget to follow and subscribe to get every episode of Wrasslin Raw coming to you every week. Give us a 5-star review and let your friends know how much cooler they would be if they became Rawheads like you and me. Next week on Wrasslin Raw, we're going to take a look at the Monday Night Raw that aired on January 6th, 1997, with matches featuring Owen Hart, Furnace and LaFawn, and many more. So, for Joe and Ryan, I'm Jason, and this has been Wrasslin Raw.